Like anytime in and around a transfer window, not happy. We had a cameo in the background from Nicola, which
Kayla's got a crowd. He's doing a live performance.
Exactly.
We were unaware of that.
Oh, from New York, you are listening to Extra Time, driven by Continental from finally Brooklyn in my apartment. I'm Andrew Wiebe with my partners in soccer, David Goss. I said it the same again. Matt Doyle and Kalen Carr.
Did you get my name
I don't know
wrong?
Where that was. I don't know why I did that. I
didn't even hear it.
Yeah, I was just staring at your little box, and I just said your name twice. And actually, Doyle was kind of blurry, so maybe I just it's kind of the same silhouette. I know it's the second show in a row we've made that joke, but it's very similar. So
Wiebe's on fire. Nailed it.
If I'm well rested though, unlike you guys.
I've been in this meeting for 2 hours waiting to do this show that you scheduled, and you come in and you're gonna try and throw a flame in here. I bet, bro.
So I'm not gonna use the term I want to use with that because I think it's inappropriate. But it was only about an hour after we were supposed to start, so not two. Anyway, I understand you're tired this morning. You're a little grumpy, Dave. You stayed up past midnight.
Yeah.
You watched Nashville Dallas. I did not make it that far personally.
I stayed on the whole time, and the whole time I was like, I'm not gonna watch this. I'm not gonna stay up and watch this. And then by the time I got to like the 75th, and I was like, this game's 100% gonna end 0-0. I was like, nah, man. Now I gotta stay for the rest of it. And I was pretty pissed off because Santiago Mosquera hit a shot that almost went out for a throw-in, and I was like, if I'm here, you should be awake and here for this. I hate you right now, Santiago Mosquera.
I knew I couldn't turn that game on. By the way, those of you that didn't watch this thing, 8:30 p.m. start time, Eastern time. Midnight.
You wish. 7
minutes after midnight, this thing actually went. I knew if I turned it on, I wouldn't turn it off. So a little self-care. I did not turn it on.
Yeah.
Anybody else? Doyle, you watch it? Kalen, you're West Coast. You don't got an excuse anymore, right? I know that time zone.
What's the latest kickoff we've had so far? Because I feel like we had a few in the MLS's back tournament too.
I think this was the latest. I think this was like 12:08 a.m. East Coast time. I'm pretty sure this was the latest, and it was pretty obvious once they got 2.5 hours into the rain delay that they were going to play this come hell or high water.
I'm just glad we didn't have a post-game show. That would have been rough.
Somewhere Chris Karen just started twitching. No, I watched the first 55 minutes. And to be fair, the first 20 minutes of the game were pretty great. Both teams were getting after it. And once Dallas missed a couple of chances, Nashville just got a lot more comfortable. And it's a bunker. They play deep in banks before, and Dallas right now are really struggling with any of their buildup. So what Dallas was good at last year was shuttling the ball from the back to the front. They had very clear patterns of play and very clear responsibilities, and they executed that well. They weren't as good in the final third, which is not unusual for young teams or teams that are coached by young managers. They are still very poor in the final third in terms of coordinated off the ball movement. So they're not creating any danger or hardly any danger. But what was striking last night was they didn't actually have much luck even advancing to the final third in the first place. Santiago Santos and Brian Acosta are playing as kind of, Santos is a true number 6 and Acosta is supposed to be the number 8. And there's like an overlap of where these guys want to get to the ball, and neither is really great at driving the game forward with the ball on their foot or even really progressive passing. So they weren't able to sort of break Nashville's defensive shape. And to Nashville's credit, their defensive shape is just like very sound and very basic, and everybody's bought in. And you have Dax McCarty and Anibal Godoy, who are both very good players, sitting in front of that defense. And they're like, okay, we know you're going to turn the ball over, so we're just going to counterattack you when you do. And Nashville generated 21 shots just playing off of Dallas's mistakes. If there had been better finishing in either direction, this could have ended differently.
It was definitely a better game than Wednesday. So trending forward for the other teams, you'd hope to see over the course of this week into the next week that same thing follows, which is more aggressive play, a more open game, as you said. So at least we had that going for us, although we didn't have a goal.
No.
What did you make of Nashville? What did we make of Nashville? I mean, people out there are going to be like, oh my God, Nashville gets 4 points in 2 road games at Dallas, and we spend 3 minutes talking about how Dallas' shape is crap and they can't push the ball forward. And we know you're in love with Dallas and Paxton Pomykal and Reggie Cannon, and we'll get to Reggie and everything with that in a second. But let's like refocus to Nashville.
They're exactly who we thought they'd be at this point. If they do it well, then they're a competitive team in MLS. They cannot score. They have no influence up top. Baji had chances in this game, but showed, I think, his limitations in what he's willing to do with the ball. He's quick to shoot rather than try and take anyone on to get into a better position. I thought Mukhtar was a little bit better. You can see at times if he picks up the ball a little deeper, he can turn off a defensive midfielder, charge at a back line, force them to make a decision, but there was no end product in that. And otherwise, as Doyle said, 2 good defensive midfielders, pretty solid at center back.
Who can both pass. That's the thing.
Yep.
Dax and Godoy can both pass, so they do get out onto the break. Go ahead.
No, and there was a few opportunities. Dax had one that he put just over Baji's head from a cross. Mukhtar had a chance off of a cross from Alistair Johnson, who got his first ever start. So they're solid defensively, and they don't have a ton of ways to create goals. They need teams to come forward on them to allow them into transition. But if they are solid defensively and that means they're legitimately getting shutouts, then they're in every game.
But the caveat here is like it's March. It's March in the MLS season right now. And every March we see some team get out to a hot start by playing sit and counter. Usually it's the Impact, right? Usually the Impact win 4 of their first 6 games and we're all like, wow, this team's awesome. It's like, no.
Piatti, except the difference is they had Piatti. I mean, that's a pretty big difference.
But this is, the question is going to be for Nashville is, do they eventually find someone who starts putting those chances away? I mean, Alex Muil's a nice pickup, but it's not going to be him. I think they do probably need a top tier number 9. They've been linked to Maxi Romero. Maybe that'll happen. And the other thing with Nashville, though, is maybe they can actually do this better than most teams do because they have Walker Zimmerman. Walker Zimmerman's a best 11 caliber center back in his prime. So even when teams are able to get through that midfield, he's putting out fires. And then Dave Romney's been really good. Dave Romney was, kind of maligned for that Galaxy team the past couple of years, but so far in 2020, he's looked really good next to Zimmerman. So there's a strength up the spine of this team. And if they get guys who are opportunistic, it wouldn't shock me at all if they were, not a top team, but certainly a spoiler in the Eastern Conference.
And there's a Chad Marshall theorem. A great center back makes an okay center back better next to them. And like we've seen it in Columbus, I think a few times you've had good center backs and then Josh Williams has had to get a ton of minutes and everyone's like, Josh Williams is a really good player in this league. And it's like, agreed. But also if you're playing next to a great center back, your entire team becomes better. Life becomes so much easier. And I think that's what you're seeing.
Oh, by the way, there's a great center back on the other side. I just want to throw this out there. Matt Hedges, I remember when he was drafted. I remember covering him. He was the George John replacement way back in the day for FC Dallas. 247 regular season games for him in this match against Nashville. That ties Jason Kreis for the all-time regular season record in Dallas history. So that's pretty cool for Matt Hedges, a one-club man in Major League Soccer. Frank O'Hara playing the 10.
Can I give a quick Matt Hedges shout? Which is, obviously I go down to Dallas and do GA Cup every year, and he comes out every single tournament. And he knows the kids on the youth teams, and they know him. And he comes and watches the games when he doesn't have to. I don't think any other first-team player comes. And he's a part of that entire club, top to bottom. And he's one of the best people in MLS, and I want to shout that out.
That was a good aside. I like that.
He also played club football with Ray Gaddis and Perry Kitchen, same club team in Indianapolis.
Whoa.
This is just deep cut city. Kaylin, you've been sitting back and you've been waiting for that. You've been waiting for that opportunity just to drop it right in there. Look, Frank O'Hara played the 10 in this game. That's not what I expected him to play when he got to Dallas, but we'll see what Lucci decides going forward. Paxton Pomykal, again, they look best when he's there, but Third Degree's Buzz Carrick kind of made the allusion to this, and I think it sounds like it's probably true. He's either coming off the bench or he's coming out early. That sounds like maybe a minutes restriction, and maybe that means that they're trying to keep him healthy, keep him good, so we can make a move this summer. TBD on that one. We'll talk about Andres Riquarte more later. If you have thoughts, FC Dallas fans, about how they should use him, let us know on that one. But I did get the Bobby Warshaw scouting report in the group chat. the other night, and we'll share that here when he gets a little bit closer to playing for FC Dallas. This I want to talk about. It's important. They did not play the national anthem of this game. They were going to with the players in the locker room, and then because of the weather delays and the lightning, they ended up being so late that from just like a noise standpoint in Frisco, they weren't going to play it anyway. But you've probably seen on your social channels, whether it's Instagram or it's Twitter, the hashtag We Kneel Together. That's players throughout Major League Soccer coming out in support of Reggie Cannon. And again, you know where Extra Time stands. Black Lives Matter. MLS is black. We stand with Reggie. His words, his actions, everything so commendable. But he got death threats for it. And there was a statement from the Beer Guardians, which I want to point out and have everybody go check out if they haven't already, about their support for Reggie. And I want to applaud them, the supporters of FC Dallas, for their directness, let's say, and putting that out and saying that. There's also some statements you can read from MLS and the Hunts and FC Dallas. But now Reggie Cannon's got the transfer rumors, and Tom Bogart's out here doing work as he has been doing recently. Sam Barnsley from the Championship is involved. Also, there was some tweets, and I'm not going to say these are like, this isn't gospel here. At Luis Dollar 09, like I guess I could make up a Twitter account if I really wanted to, but I don't think he's doing that. This is an FC Dallas fan who was at the game. Said Reggie came over to us at the Hall of Fame on the way out and all but confirmed his exit from Dallas. One of our own, hashtag Dallas till I die. Oh, and as far as his destination, says Luis Dollar, who, as far as we know, is a real person for the purpose of this conversation. Reggie was laughing with us as some people around joked about learning French. So, he laughed when they joked about learning French. I don't know what that means. I do know that Tom Bogart said that Barnsley is in for him. What do we think?
I know what it means, maybe. It means that there's a French club in for Reggie Cannon.
Well, yeah, but it's like a guy in the Hall of Fame who's tweeting afterwards, and they're making jokes about French, and Reggie's laughing. It's not exactly like Reggie is sitting here saying, hey, Ligue 1 is where I'm going, but we can pretend like it is. Where should Reggie go?
Also reporting that you were going to give me your grill, so if I put it out in the world, maybe it'll be true.
It's not happening.
I
cleaned that grill last night. You can come over and social distance grill with me, but you cannot have the grill. You already have.
I don't know. Luis Dollar sign reported. That's all I'm saying.
Okay.
So let me just talk real quick about Barnsley, because I don't watch a lot of championship football, but a lot of people who do have talked to me over the past few days as this rumor has sort of gotten. It's not even a rumor; it's a report now. Has gotten out there. Barnsley, they're a small team, but they're trying to be what Brentford were this year, like analytics heavy, scouting the world for younger players, trying to find guys that they can sell on at a profit. And the idea with Reggie Cannon is that they can get him on a good deal, and then in 18 months or 24 months, they could flip him for 8 figures to a Premier League team. So that's the Barnsley one. For the French one, I think I would pay a lot of attention to that if I was an FC Dallas fan. And that if Buzz is putting it out at Third Degree, that there's something to it.
We talk a lot about the Bundesliga as far as sort of development of American players and also as a selling league potentially. But if you look at Ligue 1 and the sales that come out of there, to the Premier League, to Italy, it is nuts. Up a level, just the PSG from within the league. The amount of money flying around is pretty significant. Kaylin, if you were Reggie, and if I was Reggie, I would be like, hey, let's do this. Let's move this summer. Let's do it right now. And he
would you rather go to a crappy team in the cloudy English Midlands, or would you rather go to the Mediterranean coast in France?
Send me to France, baby. I'm going to France if I'm Reggie, but I'm moving. It's time. He told us on this show, like, what was it? Maybe even less than 6 months ago.
He told us when he resigned.
Yeah, this was all set up for this moment to make this move, and that was the discussion with FC Dallas. Kaylin, what would you do if you're Reggie Cannon? What would you be thinking about?
Well, I think, I thought it was actually surprising that he was so honest about it when he came on our show and said that, that was a part of re-signing, was kind of with the promise that this was going to happen at some point. Now, he said he didn't know how the pandemic would affect things and whether we would be able to restart MLS and win, because this was when I think he said he was kicking his ball against his garage door at this point.
Yeah, that is what was happening, yeah.
Yeah. Under the direction of Berhalter, by the way, which I thought was awesome also. But I think this is good for Reggie and good for Dallas, because look, there has been a couple times where guys left either too early or a little bit too late, and they never really got that opportunity to sell a player on, and for that academy, all those guys that are continuing to come through, whether it's Paxson or whether it's Pepe or any of these other young players that are coming.
Come on, Kalen, say it. Your boy.
Who? Pepe?
No, Edwin Cerrillo. Come on.
Oh, Cerrillo.
Shout out to Edwin Cerrillo.
Yeah, but I mean, with that academy, I think they got us. We see the same conversation around Brennan Aronson and Mark McKenzie and Philadelphia, and just the eagerness to try and move these guys on. And Reggie, I think, sort of said like, "Hey, I want to be that example." So I think that's something that would be happening now. As far as where goes, I don't think the Barnsley move would be a problem. Although maybe the weather and all that, but I think he would do well in the championship, and I think that if you do well in the championship, I mean the Premier League is right there. And if you have, you can do that from Ligue 1. Maybe that has I don't know, maybe it's a little different style of play, and more clubs from all over are going to be seeing you play at that top tier play. But I think, I don't know, it depends on the club and who's coming in with the money and who wants you the most at some point.
Got to do it. I mean, in Ligue 1, I think you have question marks about some of the culture side. And part of that is just because we haven't seen a ton of Americans go there. Mm-hmm. We know that like you can walk into the Midlands and speak English and understand what's going on around you pretty quickly. But speaking French is a different story, and not everybody's going to be Michael Bradley and learn every language at every club that they go to.
Although if anyone was, it would be Reggie.
You're right. It would be Reggie.
I would say he's got that, like, even just when you talk to him, like he sounds like Tyler Adams. He sounds like Michael. Like he sounds like these guys
he's
that are
laser focused.
Yeah, he's dialed in. So I think you could throw, as far as, because that's a big part of the adjustment going abroad is can you handle it? I don't know. I went on trial in Belgium. I've gone over to Europe as a young player, and I just remember being, stuck in a small town by yourself, even just on trial for a couple of weeks, and being like, man, this is different. This is tough. So. I think he's ready for it, and I think this is the right time.
By the way, he'll also, you assume, if he continues progressing and the faith he has from Berhalter, be getting some time with the national team with a squad full of players that are also highly rated. At this point, there's kind of a welling tide there, and maybe that helps him as well.
I would also say, I guess this is a weird thing to say because he's a fullback, but we're in the time of Alphonso Davies, where like Davies stands out as a game breaker. Reggie Cannon's a player who's going to be better around better players. I think he'll rise to the level of competition, but he's so clean on the ball. He's a connector. You see the way he tries to direct things with Dallas. He wants to be in a system that fits him around players that he can feed, that feed him. So when I look at him going over, it's the fit within the group that I'm looking at, not what's the highest level you can play at. I just think he can produce if he's in the right group where he has the pieces around him to play off of.
Early betting right now. Reggie Cannon, not really if, more like when he moves to Europe. Will he be a success, and what kind of success? Doyle, what do you think?
I think he'll be a success. His progress as a soccer player has been amazingly linear. If you think about where he was regarded as a recruit for a college team, and then his 1 year at UCLA, and then his first year in MLS he didn't play. His second year he won the starting job, struggled at the start of the season, was very good at the end of the season. His third year he made it to the national team and was one of the best right backs in the league, scoring big goals in the playoffs. And if you think about how he played for the national team against Costa Rica, this was the Costa Rican A team or A- team really back in January. Somebody on the U.S. needed to make a play to break down that bunker, and Reggie was smart enough to figure out, his game IQ is so high, he was able to figure out when to overlap and how to get into the, like, it was a high IQ soccer play. And I think that you could take a guy like that who has that IQ and you could drop him in almost any league. I don't think he is a star for Bayern Munich or Champions League semifinalist for RB Leipzig type of talent, but I do think like a cut below that, I could see him ending up at like a Mönchengladbach or a Wolfsburg or something like that, or like a team outside of the top six in England. I think that is his, like, a very realistic ceiling for Reggie Cannon.
Maybe a little higher level, those teams you're talking about, and I don't disagree with you, but I think comp is a career like Cherundolo, where like you are first on a team sheet. He's not going to wow you, as you said, and I don't think he makes it to that high Champions League level, but I think he's a solid European starter year in and year out. He's in the pool at right back, on the depth chart, high up the depth chart for 10 years. And he's a player that doesn't lose games, doesn't make mistakes. And I think he's a guy who, if he gets to the right spot, he's a guy that like clubs and fans will fall in love with.
I dream of Chirundalos coming out of the MLS Academy system into the U.S. national team. That's my dream. Like, how many Chirundalos can we make? Like, let's make all of the Chirundalos, and let's make one Alphonso Davies,
and for the
please.
U.S. men's national team, we really need him to develop and be a starter, because I think it changes the way the rest of the team can function. And we've talked so much about Tyler Adams and where he can fit, but if you have Reggie Cannon there at right back, that allows you to do a lot of different things with Adams and the rest of the pool also.
Yeah. I mean, it's yes, we're spoiled a little bit right now as U.S. national team fans, but like, think about Canadian national team fans. I'm watching that Bayern Barcelona game, and Alphonso gets that isolation against Semedo, and I'm like, is he going to do this, man? And he just like roasted him on a spit for the better part of 35 seconds. I mean, Alphonso Davies, we've just raved about him on this show over and over and over and over, and we'll do it again. Kaylin, when you watch this game, when you think about the idea of a Canadian international being maybe the top left back in the world, one of the best left back in the world, period, if not the best, it's honestly, it's kind of awe-inspiring. It's incredible. I mean, Dave, you and I were at DC for that opener for Audi Field, and we saw that incredible goal, and we were both just we're behind the goal when it happened, when Davies scored, and we're like, oh my God. Like, did we actually see that happen? You talk about linear progression. I mean, that's Alphonso Davies, except it's on steroids, and the curve is straight up. Kaylin, when you watch this game, what emotions go through you? What thoughts go through you? How much jealousy do you have for Canada?
I'm happy for Canada. I don't know. I mean, I think, I don't know. Do I wish he was playing for the U.S. men's national team? Absolutely. But I mean, it's just amazing to see. I remember back to texting Patrice Bernier a while ago when he was just starting to get minutes in MLS and had some really bright moments where I was like, hey, how good could this guy be? And Patrice was like, dude, he's for real. And like every time I feel like he just continued to defy expectations, as from one appearance to the next. And in this play, I mean, the confidence that he has now, where he's just squaring a guy up. And then, at each sort of step, you're thinking that you kind of get that feeling as a young player, especially sometimes, where things are a little bit rushed. And when you're moving at a fast pace, that's even harder sometimes, where you're just happy you beat the guy. But then he just kind of takes that extra moment of pause and then just kind of glides by the next. And then you think he's going to cross it. He just has that extra bit of calmness to his game too, which is rare to see for such a young player, number one, and then someone who's also moving at that type of speed and against a club like Barcelona and those players. So he just has that confidence going. And then when you put it into a little bit of quality, and then I think even the mental piece of it, where he's a young guy and he fully is enjoying himself, whether on TikTok or on the pitch, but he's also I don't know, he's confident and he kind of knows who he is. So I think it's been amazing to see. And then the crazy part, I mean, Doyle and I talk about it, where it's like, where does he go from here? Like, is there, because you're already doing this at one of the biggest clubs in the world, and you could go on and stay at Bayern and win Champions Leagues for the next 10 years. But then also you're like, does Man City come get him? Does Barcelona? Does Madrid? Like, it's incredible to think that somebody from the Whitecaps Academy, and who had some great moments in MLS, and but is now doing it at this level so quick.
So can I just ask, Tyler Adams goes to Leipzig and plays for the national team, and he's a center mid in MLS, and then he plays at right back, and everyone freaks out. But then Davies is a winger in MLS and then goes to Bayern Munich and now plays left back. And like, we just don't talk about it, and that's fine. Like, he's the best left back in the world, or one of the top 5. Is the progression not for him to move back to outside mid? Like, is this his position now?
I mean, my brother literally texted me during that game after that moment and said, is Alphonso Davies Gareth Bale? Because Gareth Bale was kind of like that. He started in the back and was mostly like, hey, dude, just fly. Just fly forward, get ahead of steam, beat people, and run past him, and then you're better than most in the final third, so you have the space and time to get it done. Is Alphonso? He asked me that, and I was like, my God, he might be. I don't know, but it's hard to grapple with it because he might be the best left back in the world, and that happened in like a year.
Yeah, and the way the game is played now is whether you're a left back or a winger, it's it functions. Look, we just saw him do that against Barcelona, so it's like at times he's going to be able to do that. I think the difference between him and a guy like Bale is Davies is willing to defend, and I think he. I mean, I think he's happy to track back. I think he enjoys like running people down. He's not afraid to put in a clearance or dig a ball out with his head in the box. Like I think he's got both sides to his game, and when you're on the clubs that he's going to be playing at, they're going to have the ball the whole game. And
so the issue though is that Canada won't, and he's been disastrous at left back for Canada, and that's something that Herdman is going to have to figure out, because it was Davies as well as the right fullback whose name I'm forgetting now. No, it was
the Portuguese guy
against Haiti. Davies was just terrible in the biggest moments in that game, and then against the U.S. in the second leg of that Nations League game, Jordan Morris just ate him alive. And so Canada's got a ton of talent in Davies, and obviously for Bayern Munich, because they're having so much of the ball against everyone, he's perfect at left back. But for him to be the best left back in the world, hands down, bar none, he still has to work a lot on the defensive side of his game, more than just tracking runners down, but being aware of the shape of the game. I do think, given how quickly he's figured out a lot about the position, I think that aspect will come in time. And I don't think there's a ceiling. I don't like, and the thing that is interesting here is like, and this is again something Kayla and I discussed, Bayern Munich, one of the 5 biggest clubs in the world, they also don't sell guys that they want to keep. Like they sell guys, absolutely. But when's the last time Bayern Munich lost a guy who they really, really wanted to have? They didn't want to keep Kroos, which was weird, but they were okay to let him go to Real Madrid. And I can't remember before that. So it's already a very interesting sort of framework in thinking about Alphonso Davies, because especially with Marcelo getting older, like there is no more obvious replacement for what that guy brought to Real Madrid for a decade than Alphonso Davies on the world market. But the question is he actually on the market? Oh,
and by the way, if you want a little tampering, Marcelo, the magician, on Twitter, giving Alphonso Davies props, being like, "Young buck, you inspire me." Oh. Just getting his he'd get fined for that in NBA. That'd be $50,000. That'd be $50,000 out of Marcelo's pockets. He would never ever notice it, but it would be $50,000. I want to go real quick flashback, but actually before I go flashback, Doyle, you were going through Canada. Why doesn't Herdman just play him at left wing then? I know he's the best left back in the world, but like, why can't things change in Concacaf? Why can't you just say, hey, him and Jonathan David are going to run people?
So you can, but then you put Lucas Cavallini and Kyle Larin and Jonathan Osorio, and like all of Canada's best talent is sort of centered around that front line and the attacking midfield and wings. And like they don't have another left back really, unless Sam Adekugbe is going to, take a giant step or something like that. Or I might be forgetting someone.
Shout out to Mohamed Farsi, 2 assists in the CPL this weekend.
There you go. David's a big CPL guy. So, I mean, like they have a need on the back line to get some talent there. Did you all see Taquito fail to jump up on a 2-foot table right there? So it does make sense to play him at left back, because then you're able to get all these other talented attackers on the field. But honestly, it hasn't worked for Canada so far with Davies at left back.
Here's a flashback to 2018, 22 under 22. That one was revealed right here on Extra Time Live, driven by Continental. In case you forgot, third eye that one. Davies was number 1 there. He was coming off the Gold Cup as the leading scorer of the tournament there. And then second, you had Tyler Adams. He's in a Champions League semifinal with Red Bull Leipzig. RB Leipzig, sorry, they don't want the Red Bull in there, although it's implied. Nice little deflection special. So we'll talk about that in a second. Let's see who else was in that list. You had
Diego Rossi was 3.
Yeah, he was 3. You had he just made the big move in La Liga from NYCFC, and why can't I think of his name right now?
Yangel Herrera.
Yangel.
So Yangel Herrera would have been number 3 that year, but he got hurt. So he only played about 1,500, not even 1,500 minutes for NYCFC. He just had a huge year with Granada in La Liga, and there have been rumors of Valencia, and then some of the big clubs in Italy maybe after him as well, like the Milan clubs, not Juve, but like Milan clubs and the Rome clubs as well.
Yeah, I think Granada made Europe for the first time in like 55 years or something like that.
Yeah, and he was he's awesome.
Yeah.
Jefferson was 5th. He got sold down to Brazil. The boat, Barco, was 6th, and then Reggie Cannon was 7. So props
and then you
to the
should
voters.
Stop there. It gets a lot worse.
It wasn't as bad as you imply. It wasn't as bad as you imply.
Is it Andre Horta next?
Yeah.
I guess he's a starter in Europe.
Yeah, he was like 15. It didn't work out in LA for Horta, but look, Latif was in there. We predicted Latif.
There you go.
I remember Sam Stejskal getting so mad that people had Latif blessing over Andre Horta on that list. Good old Sam. I think Sam actually has an Andre Horta tattoo. Anyway.
We did not talk much about Tyler Adams, and we'll get to the debate that I have planned here, which is Adams, Pulisic, or Davies, or Jonathan David over the next 10 years. But we are so obsessed with Alphonso Davies. He's doing such special things that Canada will get first billing over an American central midfielder scoring a game-winning goal against Atletico Madrid in a Champions League quarterfinal. I mean, that is unbelievable. I turned this game off before Adams came on. And then my Twitter blew up, and I was like, I'm a moron. What am I doing? What did this moment mean? I mean, we keep waiting for Tyler to have kind of a consistent stretch, and injuries have really been a thorn in his side for the last year and a half or so. But to see him score this goal, to see his emotion afterwards, I mean, it makes you feel good as somebody, and particularly in your case, Dave, I think, who saw him as a USL kid who was just like grinding his way up. I remember the goal at Red Bull Arena against – who was it? Chelsea, I think it was, and Mourinho. I mean, there's all these sort of like signposts along the way.
Yeah.
And then now, boom! It's like Champions League quarterfinal, Atletico Madrid, Diego Simeone, game winner. I mean, it's just amazing.
Yeah, a guy like that was always going to make it, but it's just the pathway now is so much simpler. And like we talked about Reggie and the laser focus of Tyler, signed as a pro at 15, the first signing in their USL team's history for New York Red Bulls too. Gets on the field professionally at 16 and 17 in MLS. And to the point with Davies, figured it out at right back where he'd never played before, transitioned back into center midfield, played left back a little for the youth national teams, just like get on the field and do whatever was necessary. And I think you see in his confidence in that Chelsea game, in his debuts in MLS, in the Open Cup where he made deep run with that team at 17, and then going to Europe of like the self-belief from him is always there. So he always thinks he belongs on the field and he can compete with everyone. And he just has to wait for everyone else to notice it and prove that it's true. And he's done that consistently. If he's healthy, he's a starter on this RB Leipzig team. And this is a legitimate Champions League semifinalist. This is a team that has depth at every position. And he's a starter on that team when healthy. We hope we see it. We hope we can see it for an extended amount of time. But that alone is an accomplishment all time for U.S. players. And he still has 10 to 15 years left in his career. So it was really cool to see. And he's one of the best people in soccer. He's genuine. He's excited. He loves the game. To watch him interact with fans at Red Bull Arena. He was always first there. And Kalen doesn't even want to hear it. So Kalen's out because he's done with it. But yeah, Tyler Adams is everything you want. From a person to a player, he's everything you want for the national team. I think he might be the best prospect and future player for the national team, if I'm not allowed to say that out loud.
Whoa.
And I'm really excited.
I like the moment as the ball's coming across and to recognize the late run, also to him to recognize the space and get into it. But the way he positioned his body and the touch that he took and the way he was able to get his head up to prepare himself for the shot, like those are like in that moment, I was like, this guy, he looks like any other world-class player that you would, like, you're watching Bayern or Madrid or whatever it is. You're like, oh, the defensive midfielder just in the 90th minute set himself perfectly.
I mean, he was playing at right wing back in this one, right? Because it was the 3-3-3.
I still think of him as a center mid all the time, Doyle. And I know you want to I know you twist my brain into the right back. I know he was there at that position.
It's literally the position he was playing. So split time, and I think it's going to be interesting to see what comes of his career in terms of where he ends up playing, because he wants to play central midfield. As Weeby said, Weeby thinks of him as a central midfielder, and that's like an important check mark in any.
Okay, come on.
But it goes back to the thing that you said, David. Like, whatever the position happens to be, whatever the coach needs, Tyler Adams is willing and able to do that at a high level. And it's worth mentioning, by the way, who'd the assist come from?
I knew you were going to say that.
Who'd the assist come from?
Angelino.
NYCFC legend. That was a
Nice.
goal made in MLS. So, like,
Still the man who put 69 on his jersey.
Yeah, no, these moments they're big for the league. They are, to have guys like Davies and Angelino and Tyler Adams, not just contributing for Champions League semifinalists, but making game-winning plays. It shows the type of talent that's being groomed in this league, the type of talent you can find in this league if you're willing to do some shopping, and more and more teams are, and it's exciting. It makes me more excited to watch the world's greatest club competition.
Here's the debate, and Kalen, you seem bored with us right now. Hand on your face. I'm going to start this with you. I hope you have some heat for this.
Give Kalen a break. It's like
Kalen's gonna get up and leave.
8 a.m. where Kalen is.
Dude, I was doing the 8 a.m.s for not that long. I guess a month and a half. But it is tough. I'm not going to lie. I did have to caffeinate
What's
for
your
those.
question, Weeby?
All right. Here's the question. So I'm watching this. I'm thinking, man, oh my God, Alphonso Davies. Like, I'm so happy for Canada and just a little bit jealous, but happier, as you said, that they have this, and happy to see the rivalry, I think, come back to where it should be between these two nations. Because I think it's going to pop off with all these young players. But then I was like, dang, Jonathan David just set a Lille transfer record coming from Ghent. He had 18 goals last year. He has 11 goals in 12 games with Canada. Like, that 1-2 punch. And then we've seen Christian Pulisic really come into his own at Chelsea in the last, 6 months or so, when healthy and when Frank Lampard finally decided to put his best attacking player on the field. And then Tyler Adams goes and scores a goal in the quarterfinals of the Champions League to push his club through to the semis. And I was like, okay, 2v2, Adams and Pulisic, or Davies or David, who are you taking over the next 10 years? Who is going to have the better career, both club, international? Who is going to be more impactful? And it's almost impossible. And Ben Bear picked it up, put the poll out. And of course, I think a lot of Americans voted in this because Adams and Pulisic have a 7% edge at 57% to 43%, which is maybe a bigger gap than I would expect. What do you think? Who are you taking? 10 years from now, who are you going to sit back and say, these two had it better? Relatively speaking, they're all going to have it great. Who would it be?
Well, if it was one player, it'd be Davies, and I think pretty easily. I would take him. He's as sure a thing as I'm already seeing, and so I would take him in the one. But then when you start adding in the two, I think we could still see a lot more from, like, Christian is there. Tyler is I think still really on the rise. I think Christian is as well, but we've seen a lot more, at least, I don't know, at this stage. And if the question I also have is health a little bit. And that's the only thing that scares me for the American guys, is both of those guys have dealt with nothing like super serious, but consistently have had some issues here and there. So I'm probably still going to go with the American duo in tandem, because I think there's still a really high ceiling for Tyler Adams specifically. I think he's already doing fantastic, but I think he will end up at a it's amazing to say because he's in the Champions League semifinal, but even at a bigger club. And I think Christian is set to, he has proven so many people wrong in the Premiership already. And I think he's still got more to come as well. So he's in a really good spot as well with the manager and the way that they're going to play for years to come. So I'm probably going to take the Americans, but it's just hard for me to pick against Davies, because I feel like he is already such a sure thing and going, and already, I think the best in his position for the world. But I think Jonathan David we have seen players like him who have been successful in Europe. I guess maybe not. I guess I'm still gonna go with the Americans, but it's hard for me to pick.
Before I let Doyle, you or Dave jump in here, and Dave, I know you're big on the Tyler Adams super high ceiling side. Let's just make sure we do give Jonathan David some real shine here. And we've seen it in CONCACAF, but like he is one of the best attacking prospects in the world, no?
Say his actual name. Brooklyn's own Jonathan David.
Thank you. Thank you. I had it in the rundown, but yes, Brooklyn's own in caps. I don't think I put it all caps.
Do you put him at the same as the same level as a Christian Pulisic?
Yeah, I do.
He is going to.
He's 3 years younger.
Yeah.
He's 3 years younger going into Ligue 1. He's replacing Victor Osimhen, who just went for 70 million to Napoli, to a club that's fourth in Ligue 1, and he's going to be the center forward or the number 10, whatever it is. I think he scored in half his games with Ghent or Genk. I never remember which one's
Ghent.
which.
It's Ghent.
Ghent, including in Europe. He was one of the better players in Europa League, and that's playing as a 10 in Europe at 18 or 19 as a Canadian, which just isn't really done. So, yeah, I think Jonathan David's on that level. He's just a little bit younger than Pulisic is. So you haven't seen it. And even then, if, let's say he doesn't play at Chelsea, if he's the lockdown 10 and center forward for a top 8 team in a top 4 league, like that for Canada could be enough and put you at the top of CONCACAF alongside what else you have.
And that's underselling him. He is going to be, in my opinion, he is going to be that. Like Lille is a club that says, come to us for 18 months. We are going to sell you to the highest bidder. And it might have been Arsenal had he not decided on Lille. He might already be at that.
Yeah, but Arsenal's not a top. This is barely a top 8 club.
Okay, fair.
So is Napoli. That's not knocking him. I'm just saying that's the reality of the ecosystem.
Chelsea's not really there either right now, but
just real quick. So first of all, Jonathan David is a year and a half younger than Pulisic. Year and a half younger than Pulisic, not 3 years younger. Okay. Second of all, we don't know he's going to be a 10. I think it's much more likely that he's going to be a center forward.
I think so too.
Like second forward in a 2-forward lineup, if you want to do something like that, which Canada might end up doing. But he's definitely not, even though he played a little bit there this past year, he's definitely not a get on the ball, pull the strings type of number 10. He's just
anyone.
Well, I mean, it's a fair point, but I don't think you see a lot of guys like him playing as a number 10 in, at the top levels of the modern game.
Play him as the 9. Play him with 2 wingers on the sides of him that want to be direct.
Yep.
What he's so good at is making decisions at speed in the open field.
Yep.
And he draws defenders, so he'll make the right decision, and he'll make the run straight down the gut. And he's very, very good in the 18 as far as like first time finishes, quick turn, release, finding the bottom corners. I think he's going to be a huge player. And if you look at Lille, like they think he's going to, they've never spent this much money. And Nicolas Pepe, they sold for an incredible amount to Arsenal, a very, very small club in Europe. Like the last couple signings or sales for them are to Napoli, Osimhen, and then you also have to AC Milan a forward. And they might sell, they're just going to sell another guy to Arsenal. Their central defender for like 70 million. Like this guy's going to go for 60, 70 million in a year and a half, 2 years.
If he stays healthy. And we know all about highly rated attacking prospects going to Lille and not staying healthy, because I think prior to this, their record signing was Timothy Weah, who they spent $10 million for. And if you're a U.S. soccer fan, you know that Timothy Weah basically missed all of this past year with a couple of back-to-back hamstring injuries. So fingers crossed that doesn't happen.
Let's get back to it. Who are you taking, Dave and Doyle? This duo. Because I'm taking Davids and I'm taking Davies. And it's not that it's not close. I just think that those two guys, ceiling-wise, like Alphonso, he's already pushing the ceiling to places that we couldn't imagine. I think David is going to be there in a year and a half, 2 years, to where we're just like, my God. I think it's them.
If you force me to make a choice, I'm going to take the two guys who are not injury prone, and that's Davies and David. But this all has to happen within the context of like the larger national team picture. And while Canada is in a really good place, I don't think they're in as good a place as the U.S. was able to play without Christian Pulisic and just drub Canada 4-1 in what was a must-win game for the Canadians back in November. So it's a fun conversation. I think anybody who's realistic looking at it would take the two guys who have not missed significant time due to injury, but it's nice to see this amount of talent in CONCACAF.
It also depends on what your question is, because if it's which one does things for their national team they've never done before, for Canada just qualifying for a World Cup, the U.S. has to get to a semifinal to do something different, which I think is a little bit tougher. So most likely in the next 10 years, David and Davies will do things for Canada that are unprecedented that Adams and Pulisic will have trouble to do for the U.S. Also, entertainment. Like, if you're talking about entertainment, I love center mids. I love watching Tyler Adams play. But Davies dribbling guys and Jonathan David scoring 25 goals in a European season is probably a little more entertaining, even if you're as nerd-like about defensive midfielders as some of us can be. So I think that kind of answers your question. And the biggest one is just injuries. Because on top of it happening to Tyler and Pulisic, I think there's probably an extent of like Tyler plays at 150 miles per hour. And if he has problems with his body, can he tone that down to stay on the field and keep himself from being injured? Or does he come back from injuries, play at that speed, get himself hurt again, and go back out? So it's something that he's going to have to learn as a pro, is how to handle his body over the course of, like, if he's playing at these clubs, you're talking 2 games a week, the entire season. Then you got to fly back to the U.S., play in big games, Central America, World Cup qualifying, whatever. Then you go back, you play a Champions League game midweek, a cup semifinal the next midweek, and a big game on the weekend. It's going to be a lot for him to deal with, and that's going to be something he has to learn.
Weeby's mouth is moving, but there's no sound coming out.
The baby was crying, and I muted, and I thought, I will definitely unmute this. I will surely remember to hit the unmute button mid-cry, and I did not remember. Go ahead.
Can I throw one little thing in here at the end? Because Brendan Aronson's going to get sold to Belgium in a few months. I don't actually know that, but I'm just saying. And everyone's going to freak out. And then we're going to come back around in 4 years and be like, wow, look at the progression of Jonathan David's career, which followed Victor Osimhen, who went to Belgium, scored in Belgium, then went to Lille, then went to a Champions League team. And Jonathan David's going to be playing there at that time. And everyone's going to say, you got to be playing in one of the top 4 leagues immediately the second you leave MLS. And I just would like us all to remember these conversations we're having about the teams that run themselves well and finding the right place and finding your feet and then progressing your career. We should probably talk about that when it comes back up, as we are now.
412-060
And we should talk about it when it comes to imports to MLS, because not everybody's going to be Joseph Martinez and Miguel Almiron and just come in and set the league on fire from the start.
Can I ask this? Why doesn't an MLS team just do what Lille does? Lille is saying basically all the time publicly, 2 players, 2 agents, 2 other clubs around the world, we are going to be a team that basically just buys promising 18 to 21-year-olds, tries to give them a year and a half, and then sells them. And oh, by the way, in doing that, we're also going to be pretty successful because these guys, 1, are quality, 2, incredibly motivated, and 3, know that they're going to have sort of the reign that they need to develop and express themselves.
Because Timothy Weah didn't break Leo's back, and that if you do that in MLS, it will break your back. You can't miss it, with the way we spend money still. You can't miss like that on $10 million signings and then just.
But what if they're not? How about this? What if they're not $10 million signings? What if we're taking it down a level and we're saying the most promising players in Costa Rica, we're going to get them?
Isn't that what they're kind of doing?
That's what they're trying to do. And most of these guys that are signed for $2-3 million aren't as good as the guys that you can find in academies or even the super draft here. So it's just a different sort of ball game with the amount of money that's being spent. And while I'll push back a little bit, like Andre Horta didn't break LAFC's back, and having Barco be a super sub, a human victory cigar, didn't break Atlanta's back.
It broke Frank de Boris.
It did break, for sure it broke Frank de Boris. But like the margins are a lot slimmer, and I think that. We've seen a little bit of it with Vancouver being willing to sell just about everybody, which is great, like be that club. And hopefully it's what we're going to start to see from LAFC, because there's going to be interest in Rossi. There's going to be interest in Atuesta. And it seems like they've been proactive about going out and getting replacements for those guys and getting them integrated before those guys are even gone. And we haven't seen that type of strategy in regards to team building before them in MLS. And then the other thing is, okay, if Reggie Cannon gets sold for $3 million and does well, in 2 years from now is sold for $10 million to a Premier League team, maybe Weeby's favorite player, Brian Reynolds, will get sold for $5 million instead of $3 million.
So,
and then you're creating a pipeline and you're creating that sort of like proven ability to prepare players for these big 5 leagues.
and that to me is the model that you should want, is not what Lille is, which is buying externally, producing, and then selling it on. It's your academy, because there's untapped talent in this area that can be produced and sold over if you're running yourself the right way. And that is the market that MLS hasn't hit. That is more realistic to me, and also something that hasn't happened yet. So like if MLS just gets into the pool with, we're going to buy young South Americans and sell them on, so is everyone else. Everyone in Portugal is doing that. Half of Italy's doing that. All of Belgium's doing that. Like, you're not the only ones in that game. Even City Football Group just bought Ugalde from Saprissa. You're not the only one in any of those games, except here where you control your territory and where players want to play at home and have to a certain extent at some age. That's the opportunity that MLS needs to produce on that. And the Reggie Cannon model is bigger than Lille, which is because they said to Reggie Cannon the same way you want them to say to foreign players, let's re-sign this contract to sell you. Like, that is the purpose of this entire thing. And I think then you have an opportunity where Weston McKennie doesn't leave before, and he's a unique circumstance. He lived in Germany. He was always going to go, whatever. But those guys don't leave before they get an MLS contract. Then you sell them on. And then, as Doyle said, you start to create that pipeline.
Yeah, I mean, it goes back to me saying, like, MLS clubs should be happy and wanting to be and communicating that they are, and then executing on it, that they are dream makers.
Yeah.
Like, we'll make the dream come true. Come to us. If the right offer comes, and by the way, let's all communicate and define what the right offer might be, so it's not weird and we're all in limbo when something comes in and then somebody gets hurt. If you don't actually sell them, here's the right offer. When it comes, you're going. We'll give you the opportunity. This coach has invested you. This club's invested in you. I want to see more of that in MLS. I'd also love to see Lionel Messi in MLS, but we have to hit that 8-2 Bayern.
There's our headline.
Knocking down Barcelona. YouTube headline. Here it is.
MLS All-Star 2021. Suarez, Piqué, Busquets, Griezmann.
Rakitic. ETR legend, Ivan Rakitic.
Oh, he is an ETR legend. Apparently, Huso Stoichkov spoke to Barcelona about Alphonso Davies before Bayern got him. And Barcelona basically said he is Canadian. No thanks. That didn't work out too well for him. Maybe you should change your tune on that one. But Leo Messi's kind of he's in the crappiest situation he's ever been at Barcelona. He reportedly is open to leaving. Is now the time? If you're MLS, and it's a weird time because of the pandemic and everything else going on, but you do have in 2023 a new TV deal that you'd like to be larger. Do you come in and just, like Kalen, throw the bag of cash on the table and say, Leo, point to how much of this you want and we'll give it to you? Like, do you do everything to get Leo Messi into MLS right now when you have an opportunity? Because maybe he doesn't want to go elsewhere in Europe.
Well, I'm trying to think who could even begin a conversation like that. And the Galaxy, it'd probably be the Galaxy or Miami.
I mean, a lot of these MLS owners have, none of them are poor.
If money's the issue, I don't think anybody's going to be. There might be some clubs that are just like, okay, this isn't going to happen for us. Like, we don't want to do it. It's not, Leo Messi. No offense to Salt Lake City, is probably not coming to Utah.
Weeby, culturally, how would Messi and Gerard Piqué and Shakira fit in Kansas City? Do you think
there are some? There are better tapas in Kansas City than you would expect. Like, one or two places have tapas and they're all right. I'm just saying, like, they could like, little takeout. They could
There's
survive.
definitely red meat, so he could get his
That's true.
Argentine grill going.
That's true. He would be there for that.
I don't think there's any chance that Leo Messi's last game in Europe is going to be an 8-2 embarrassment. It might end up being his last game for Barcelona because he absolutely loathes the board, and the Barcelona board has spent $750 million over the last 5 years for, I think, 0 starters. Including $80 million on Frankie de Jong, who was a nice little player. But if you go watch that Alphonso Davies clip. Watch how De Jong just like escorts Kimmich to the goal. Like he doesn't even like this is just such a basic play and he couldn't make it. But I think that if Leo Messi goes anywhere, it's to the other Inter. It's not Inter Miami. It's probably Inter Milan. I think Serie A is definitely the likeliest landing spot.
But
okay, get out of here with that realistic stuff. Go back to MLS.
No, but to the original point, if it's ever going to happen, and like you're going to make waves with it, right? Because if he goes to another team in Europe, he's going to play there, and then the expectation is he's going to go to China, the Middle East, maybe Argentina, probably not, or MLS. If you're going to make waves, it's now, which is it's unexpected. And yes, you do everything you can to sign him, and you get every eyeball in the world on MLS for whatever months you can. Do I think he's going to come? No. But now is your best opportunity that you've ever had, and potentially your best chance for 2 more years to get him in the league, as well as I think right now you just got to start picking the bones at Barcelona and see what else you can end up with. And I don't know, maybe Semedo wants to come and play for New York Red Bulls. Who knows? But you only know if you ask.
Does it even make sense for a club right now or MLS right now as a league to make a move like this with what it would cost to get it done?
Yes,
it does.
Yeah. Yes, it always makes sense to go for Messi. All for MLS.
I don't think the return is as high right now.
Oh, for sure. It hurts that there's no fans in the stadium.
You can't sell out,
and you can't mobilize. But you're still selling jerseys.
90,000 tickets in Los Angeles. You could do that all across the league. You could sell 1 billion jerseys. I don't know what people are buying.
But you're going to still sell 1 billion jerseys. You're still going to get the views. You're still going to get the advertisement money. And as we said, you're going into a TV deal. All of that still makes sense. It sucks, but he's going to get older. We can't sign him at 33 in 4 years. So you kind of only have one shot at it. So if there's an opening, you got to try and take it.
So talk to us. He can dictate anything he wants in a deal. Leo Messi can. Nobody can sit across from Leo Messi in soccer and say, actually, we need you for 4 years instead of 2. So tell Leo Messi, buddy, we've got all the money in the world waiting for you in 2 years. Just wait until summer 2022, whatever it is. At that time, you're coming to MLS. Make sure you can get out of free. We will make it worth your while. And at that point, we alert the broadcasters. And in 2023, it's a bonanza. And you're like, you put a vaccine clause in or something. You know what I mean? Like when we're back to normalcy, the big money's there for you in the U.S., man. Come here. You have to do everything you can. I mean, like, you think they just walked into David Beckham like Alexi Lawless and Lawwick and all those guys one time did? This is like a mini-year process. Like, seed it now. Seed it now. We need to see Leo Messi in this league at some point. And if it's not now, I hope it's later. Let us know what you think. Let's get into the weekend or the week that will be. I don't know. It's a weird time in Major League Soccer. We have a game on Tuesday in Canada. Toronto, Vancouver. If you didn't see the news on how Canada is going to integrate back into phase 1, go check MLSsoccer.com. They're basically going to round robin each other and just play north of the border. And this is the first of those games. Tuesday, 8 p.m. Eastern, TSN in Canada, MLS Live on ESPN Plus in the U.S. Can we see Jozy and Ayo together up top, Doyle? Do we get that? Is that something that Greg Vanney will give us, or should he give us?
I mean, we got a 10-minute taste of that in the final group game for Toronto? Yeah, it was a final group game for Toronto FC. And the first thing that happened was it was like the old Jozy and Charlie Davies play where Jozy would check to the ball, with 2 defenders on his back, and Ayo made that straight run through the lines, perfect timing, almost resulted in a penalty kick. Jozy has been clear throughout his career. He prefers playing up top with a partner in a 2-forward setup. They've won MLS Cup and the Supporters Shield and multiple Canadian championships with Jozy playing in a 2-forward setup. Ayo didn't seem to have any problems with it when he got up there. But also, Toronto have, over the past couple of years, really tried to become more of a 4-3-3 team. They signed a TAM winger. They signed a DP winger in Pablo Piatti. They have multiple veterans like Nick De Leon, Tsubasa Endo, who have given them big minutes. Richie Larea, who might be their best right back and their best left back, has also been really good on the wing for them. So there's a lot of moving pieces here, and I think that given the way the schedule has been compressed, we'll see all of it, and it wouldn't shock me at all if at the end of this very irregular regular season coming up, the best look for Toronto is Jozy and Ayo up top in some sort of 4-4-2 or 3-5-2.
It's just going to be interesting who goes to the bench then, because if Piatti's healthy, Osorio can't probably be on the field because Pozuelo's on your right side if you're playing two forwards up top.
Yep.
Bradley and Delgado have to be together in midfield at this point. And so you gave a bunch of money to Osorio. He's a big part of your team. I think the person who has the least ego to be in the team is Akinola, and Piatti was good when healthy in the tournament they just played. He's never been healthy in his career. He's never done it for a sustained amount of time. And I agree with Doyle. What's awesome about this is they're going to have to play all of them. And in the end, it might be Akinola who's playing the most minutes, and Jozy's coming in to play alongside him in games where they go to up top because of the health history for those guys. But if they're at their best in a big game, it'll be interesting to see if he can get himself on the field.
Flip side, Vancouver Whitecaps got a little money to play with here. We talked to you about the Wangenbohm move. So he's going to Russia, and it looks like they'll get, I don't know, depending on your math, somewhere between 400,000 in GAM and maybe more, TBD. But they have an open DP spot to the Vancouver Whitecaps. We'll see what they do with it in these summer months. After Tuesday's match, lifting up Canada, Toronto and Vancouver, we go to the New York Derby. Are we calling it the Hudson River Derby now? Have they allowed that? Is that allowed?
As far as I'm concerned, yes. It's a great name for a derby.
I think it's the perfect
Not
name.
El Trafico, but
It's more hyper genuine, but I'm very focused on being
it's a home game for both teams. Can I say that? For the Red Bulls and New York City FC? It's that's the new blue side of New York there at Red Bull Arena, and it's obviously the Red Bulls' home. So this is a home game. I got a
Papusa place nearby Red Bull Arena now. So if anyone needs to get hooked up, let me know.
MLS Live on ESPN Plus, 7 p.m. Eastern. MLS Live on DAZN in Canada. Kalen, remove Maxi Morales from the blue side of New York. Who does NYCFC need a big season from the most?
I'd say Ring. I think Ring has been, when they have been great, when they've not, even with Maxi, they've needed Ring. And at times I think he has been maybe their most important player outside of Maxi, even in the past. Connecting back to front, winning balls, and then also actually getting more involved in the attack. And especially if you don't have Maxi, or if you're going to take him out of the equation, I think they've got nice pieces in the middle of the midfield, whether it's Sands or Parks and others. But I think Ring is the one constant that I think takes them up to the next level. I know they have a lot of pieces, Castellanos and Eber and Tajuri Shradi and all the rest. But I would say Ring is probably, after Maxi, their next most important player.
That definitely feels like the practical right pick.
It's Eber. Like Ring is great, and Kalen is right that he has to be really good. And obviously, this is Maxi's team. But if you look at the difference between NYCFC last year and NYCFC this year in terms of results, it's Eber's finishing. Like NYCFC against Orlando City and against Philadelphia, they had great chances, and Eber didn't put them away. I think he will eventually find his form in front of the box, but he's played 7 or 8 games this year. He has failed to score in 7 of them. And if he had put those chances away, not even at the great rate that he did last year, at like 75% of that rate, then we're not talking about NYCFC struggling with this adaptation to a new coach and a new system. We're talking about how, well, it doesn't look quite as pretty as it did under Dome, but they're still getting points and they still have a lot of talent. Eber's got to be something close to what he was last year, or NYCFC are in a decent amount of trouble.
I'm rooting for Jesus Medina. I'm just going to say that. I want more golazos from Jesus Medina, who found himself buried on the bench. I want him to succeed. Jesus, I need to see the best from you. On the flip side, Dave, I don't really know what I'm seeing right now from the Red Bulls. And every time I get on Red Bull Twitter, they're gnashing their teeth as well, which is basically just like transfer window normality. Like anytime in and around a transfer window, not happy. We had a cameo in the background from Nicola, which I...
Kalen's got a crowd. He's doing a live performance.
Exactly.
We were unaware of that.
What's going on with the Red Bulls? Like, what have they done in this transfer window? What are they as a club? Where are they headed? Should we be confused, or is this just what it is?
No, it's a little confusing. I mean, it's a change of what they're doing, one, on the field, and then two, you've brought in a new academy director and head of technical director. So, like, they've changed a lot over the last 6 months, and they've continued to move out these guys, Robles and now BWP, who are central parts of their team. They brought in 2 signings in Tete and Yearwood. They feel like Yearwood does things that they don't have in midfield, an ability to be a little bit more aggressive, pressing when they do in those moments, and then being able to transition that into possession. They feel like he was underlooked, and you bring in a guy in Thilwell who was in England, was watching these players specifically for a long time, and look at what's happened in Germany, where Germany was producing the best players in the world, and now they're going to get young English players and bring them into their teams because they feel like they're as close as you can be coming out of the academies at the technical level. So Red Bulls feel like he's a player for now. He's a guy that can compete for them in central midfield and bring something they don't have. Sean Davis and Casares next to each other. I love Casares. He's a great possession player. He doesn't have the ability to up the tempo if they need to, and Davis is the same next to him. So now you bring in a new option in Yearwood and a guy who, yeah, you paid a little bit of money for, but if he goes on the level they think he can go on, then you're going to make that money back and more in the future, and probably have someone who's a legitimate part of your team for 3-4 years going into that. And then on Tete, listen, we just talked about NYCFC and all the things they've done. These clubs have huge scouting networks. Tete's in Red Bull Salzburg. He went out on loan, but they get to see him up close, including a guy in Jesse Marsh who's vouching for him and saying this is a guy who can compete at the MLS level. So they bring him in, and I don't think they have anyone in the attack who can beat guys 1v1 and create chances out of nowhere. Kaku can do it in the flow of play if it happens, and Royer's a clean finisher and can beat a guy every once in a while coming inside. But if Tete can bring something new, you've added two players who change the way you can play. And I know Chris Armas has a lot of little things that he looks for in players, and he feels like both of these players can step in, which is, I think he feels like they've transitioned too slow from winning the ball into the attack. And these are two players who have high IQs, who can do it quickly, who can maybe make them more effective in possession.
Should be fun on Thursday, 7 p.m. Eastern. It is a part of the MLS Predict 6 presented by BetMGM this week. You got 6 games. You predict results. There's little props for each of them. In this match, it is the first goal scorer. Who would you guys take from this game? Win, lose, draw? Kalen, what do you got? Hudson River Derby.
This is for a first goal.
Win, lose, draw. But you can give me the first goal, too. I'm open to that. And if it's a debutant, double points in my book. Not in BetMGM Pick 6 book, but in my book.
I'm going to go with NYCFC. I know neither team has really showed their best, but I thought for a second things had begun to click in for NYCFC, and just how anemic that attack looked for Red Bull was concerning for me. And then even the way that they conceded goals was sort of uncharacteristic, where it was just either mistakes in the back and then a failure to kind of track. They conceded off a throw-in. They conceded off a lot of mistakes that you're not accustomed to seeing. So I think overall, I'm going to have to give the edge to NYCFC.
I'm going Red Bulls just because of the debutants. Dave's got me sold now. I'm on the Tete bandwagon.
They probably won't even play in this game.
Yeah,
I don't even know if they're
No, but just being on the bench, just looking from afar, that's going to get the boys going. It's going to up the tempo. Just to go against on the other side, just to get my, probably more points there, I'm going to go Red Bulls. I'll take them.
Okay. I do think that we have a week of a ton of rivalry games coming out of we have no idea what. I think it's going to be Chaos MLS, which I'm here for. So I think Team Chaos is the ultimate victor in all of this, but I'll take NYCFC as well. I actually thought they finished fairly strong in Orlando, found their feet a little bit. And with Red Bull starting Tarek, it seems like there's more moving pieces than I expected coming into this season for them, even in places where I didn't think it would happen. So NYCFC probably at a higher level right now.
Doyle, give me the goal scorer. Who scores the first goal?
Eber, my guy Eber.
Yeah.
Nice. Everything I just said, I think
has to do it.
Yeah, he had to. It was perfect. MLS Predict 6 presented by BetMGM, MLSsoccer.com, the MLS app. Go get that going. Money to win as well through that. At 7:30 p.m., we have Columbus Crew SC and Chicago Fire on Thursday. Crew made some moves, traded Axel Schuberg for Emma Boateng. Also got Grant Lillard for Inter Miami for a super draft pick in 2021. On the Fire side, we didn't talk about this, but they lost the starter, I think last week or the week before. Goalkeeper Kenneth Kronholm out for the season. Bobby Shuttleworth is going to be in goal, says Raphael Wiki for the Fire. 7:30 same time, Revs, Union, ESPN Plus, MLS Live on DAZN. Best 11 player out, Carles Gil injured, Achilles tendon, 3 to 5 months.
I thought you were going to say Wilfred Zahibo, best 11.
Nah, but Zahibo's
MLS
gone
All-Star,
too.
sorry.
Yeah. Zahibo's gone too. That was a late ad, though, for Zahibo. So it counts, but it's a little weird. Carles Gil, Doyle, what's this mean to the Revs?
A lot. We saw them struggle even just figuring out how to play out of the back without him because his ability to drop deep, get on the ball, and sort of change the geometry of the game and, change the shape of the opposing defense. Without that, New England, I thought, struggled doing the basic stuff. That said, I do think they'll figure that out, especially now that Matt Polster's there, because Matt Polster loves getting on the ball. He's a very good distributor. So it means much more in terms of the attack. They don't have a playmaker. They don't have a playmaker without Carles Gil. Like Christian Pinilla has had some good moments in MLS. He had a really good first year. If he's on the run, he can be devastating in terms of finding the final ball. I like what I've seen from Tajon Buchanan, but he's more of a wide guy. He's not going to come inside and dictate the game. Gustavo Bo is a classic second forward, not much of a playmaker at all. There is no replacing Carles Gil like for like on that team. Maybe this is a chance for Diego Fagundes.
Yes.
But even Diego Fagundes hasn't been close to that guy in the past 3 years. So it's tough, and it's going to be a big test for that roster. It's going to be a big test for Bruce Arena.
Wouldn't be surprising to me if they go a little bit direct.
Yes. And we saw them be more of a pressing team, actually, in MLS's back without Carles Gil, and they do have the weapons to do that. But it's a huge question for a team that was a playoff team last year.
What a bizarre year for Carles Gil, by the way. He was injured at the first because he had cleats that didn't fit him.
Ugh.
And then it just has not been a great year for him. On the Union side, before we get to the mailbag here and get out of here, I've been I'm not as big a GA Cup guy as you are, Dave, but when I saw his name, I thought it was like the weirdest thing ever. Paxton Aronson, Paxton with an E. And I was like, are we mixing together our prospects? Like, what is this strange alchemy of U.S. soccer development? But the Union signed the younger brother of Brendan Aronson, who's been getting all the hype. What's the scouting
report? You got to go to Doyle because Doyle's going to give you the high level hype. Mine's a little more watered down. If you want to go main lines, I think Doyle's the one who's got to
hype me up, gas me up.
I think that at a similar age, he definitely finds more of the game and finds more of the ball than Brendan did for those Union academy teams. He's all over the ball, which is what you want to see. The issue with him is he's so tiny, and he's grown a foot over the past year, but he's still about 5'1". He looks like a child out there. So there's still just huge questions about whether he can have the physical capabilities to be a professional player. But in terms of doing all the stuff that you want to see from a central midfielder, he seems to have it.
There you go. There it is. He is a true 10. He's so much fun to watch. But I don't think Brendan Aronson's going to be a 10 in his career at the highest level. So that comp, he's going to be more fun to watch than Brendan Aronson, which is saying a lot because Aronson's been pretty awesome at times throughout the last month and a half, 2 months. But physically, there's huge question marks if he can contend at the top level. But you got to give respect to Philly because they're signing the next crop. They're not waiting for McKenzie and Brendan Aronson to go and fill their spot specifically. They've got Danny Flores. They've got Huckabee, a center back prospect that they think can replace McKenzie. They've got fullback prospects, Issa Ryan as well, who could play as a wingbacker on the side. So they've got that next level of guys that they're ready to bring in.
All right, let's get to the mailbag and get out of here. We know you've taken a lot of your time, but it's been a fun Monday. 401-2060-MLS, extra time at MLSsoccer.com. Literally anything you want us to talk about, you can send in. If we're not talking about your team and you want us to, there's 26 in MLS and more coming. So prompt us, make us do it. Hit us up, and we'll start, or maybe end, I should say, with a very ETR special, one close to our hearts from Carter Hastings, based exclusively on the food in their cities, which MLS clubs would make the playoffs / win MLS Cup. And I've decided that we are going to the conference finals. So we get 4 different cities that can match up and then go to the final. It doesn't have to be, I don't think. Okay. We can mix it. This is MLS's back rules, basically. So it's just whatever you want, whenever you want it, just throw it all together. Kaylin, you've done a good bit of traveling in this league. Maybe not in this latest era of expansion, but you have as a as a capital J journalist here at MLS Soccer.
Oof. I would love for the last part of this to be, and you have to do it on an MLS player per diem. That would have been the clincher on this whole. You got to do it within TAM. You can trade for more GAM if you want to, but that's your restriction.
Where are you going, Kalen? What's the number one food city in MLS? Get our conference final started here.
Man, Portland's pretty high. I'd probably put Portland as number one. I think Portland's got it's got the highbrow, the very you can go off into a Top Chef's cabin in the woods is going to make you some type of, bespoke mushroom.
I was just thinking the mushroom that he gathered that morning on a walk with his border collie who wears a bandana around its neck.
Yeah, I think Portland's probably. I think just nationally, if you were to talk to, I've got a friend who listens to the show.
Shout out your friend
at Thrillist, yes, who wrote a really good book, Burn the Ice. I think it's called Burn the Ice, and he talks about Portland's food scene and how it's kind of taken over. And change the American culinary experience. So I defer to him and say Portland number one. I don't know. I really like Houston. I think Houston, it has all the best places that exist in Austin are also in Houston. Except there's, it's just.
Does that mean Austin's an early favorite to come from expansion?
I thought there was about to be some Austin slander there before you interrupted, Kalen. I felt.
I was ready to go, but yeah, Houston's cooler than Austin.
I just want to make this point. I don't even live in a particularly good food section of New York City, but I look out my window and I could see a German beer garden, a ramen shop that has a Michelin star, a place that's considered one of the best Peruvian places in the entire United States of America, a classic 50-year-old New York City Italian joint that's right next door to an Okinawan sushi joint that does obanzai. It's one of the only places in the city that does obanzai. And I'm a block away from just classic Astoria Greek food and a Michelin-starred Mexican joint and this tiny little Korean hole-in-the-wall deli. If you're doing best food city, it's New York City by 1,000 miles. The only way to do this equitably is to be okay, the signature dish of each city. So we would put up a New York slice versus Nashville hot chicken versus, Boston, New England clam chowder versus poutine and all that. That's the proper way to do this.
I got to disagree because when you go into the city, you might get the signature dish. You're there. Let's say you're there for 48 hours. Dave will send Dave around the country to do his thing.
Are getting the signature dish.
You're going to get the signature dish, but you're also going to have the two places that you're so-and-so, my network told me, or this is the spot that has you're going to do both. So I don't want to hamstring. I don't want to make Kansas City just a brisket city. I don't want to make.
Well, you probably should because it probably pushes them higher up on.
Yeah, that's probably
they probably appreciate that restrictions on what we're doing. I will throw in there. Toronto competes with New York in terms of international cuisine and quality of it, and do some better like Caribbean food than New York City does.
Wait a minute. True.
100%. West Indian food is better in Toronto than it is in New York City.
Oh my God.
Yeah, facts. I would throw in.
I guess
Montreal.
I'm not in Crown Heights anymore. I was about to say, come on down here. Come down here. Come down here, downtown Brooklyn.
I don't, not disrespecting it, and I'll eat it all day in New York, but it is still better there. And then I throw in Montreal, which gets respect, but I don't respect Montreal staples because Montreal staples are bad, fake versions of New York staples, and it makes me angry and disgusted. And I would throw Atlanta in there because they have great local cuisine and international cuisine because it's such a diverse city, but you have that Southern food that they are the seat of. So there you go.
Kaylen,
not a lot of love for the West Coast from me.
Kaylen, you going to go to Chez Panisse or what? Now that you're back out in Berkeley?
I can't afford it, Doyle. Not everybody's caking like you, bro.
I'm going to take Atlanta right now because every time we've been to Atlanta in the last 3-4 years, which is a lot, every single time there is a meal that I look across the table at either Dave or Abner or somebody else and say, oh my God, this might be among the best meals of my life. Let us know what's the best food city in MLS. We're going to get out of here. Let you enjoy your week. We'll be back on Thursday. More transfer rumors, more games to review. Enjoy it, everybody. We'll see you real soon.